guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode in our Whitney-a-thon, if you will. This is episode 3, where we're going to talk about the album I'm Your Baby Tonight. With us, as always, is Dre. It just, no matter how often I ask him to say something. And we have also Mr. Ed Bowser to continue our discussion from SoulInStereo.
What's up, players?
So let's get it here. Okay, so we've gotten the second Whitney record out of our system. If you haven't watched the first 2 episodes, you're fired. It's really that simple. No, just go back and watch them, because now we're going to feel a little better about ourselves and about Whitney, because now we're going to talk about the third record, I'm Your Baby Tonight. So as we spoke of in the previous episode, Whitney goes white, because she did. She went extremely Caucasoid on that second record.
Yes.
Yes, I said Caucasoid. I will say it again.
Oh, man.
And she went complete. She sold records through the roof, hand over fist. She sold over 10 million copies of that last record. But something had to be done. There was a huge issue created because she completely left the R&B audience behind. There was a particularly ugly Arsenio Hall show episode, where she showed up and she was booed and it went badly. So something needed to be done. So Clive Davis, because despite what we say, Clive Davis is a genius and he will go where the money is, he decides to go in and hire other people. And so we end up with I'm Your Baby Tonight. Namely, he hired LA and Babyface to come in and deal with this one, along with Luther Vandross and Stevie Wonder. And he did bring back Nerida and Michael, and not to poor effect, at least not in Nerida's case. And Whitney herself was involved in the executive production of this record, so she was taking more artistic control. She was kind of over the Clive-isms too. Can you blame her? And so we end up with I'm Your Baby Tonight. So, Mr. Bowser, I'm Your Baby Tonight. What are you thinking? What's the good stuff? What's the bad stuff? Let us have it.
Well, you know, I always have a story with every album, so let me dive into this. So, as we said on our previous episodes, Whitney in the 80s didn't really connect with me. I just saw her as kind of my aunt's favorite. The only really album cuts I heard was when I was hanging out at her house. But this is around the time that Whitney started getting my attention. And it may be because of L.A. Reid. It may be because of Face. It may be because of the In Living Color spoof of the title track. But whatever it was, this is the album that started to pull me into the Whitney fandom here. So as Ed already said, this is her album. I don't want to say comeback album, because it's not like the previous album was a failure, but this was the comeback to the Black Folks album. And it felt like it in every way.
Whitney's Black album.
Yes. Jesus.
And even if you look at the cover, where is it? Wait, there it is. There. Thank you, Ed. But even if you look at the cover looks completely different from the other ones. The other ones are very pop-tarted up. And the Your Baby Tonight doesn't look like that at all.
No,
so
and this is
aesthetic changed for
actually one of my favorite covers from her too. It is just perfect
Gangster.
90s. Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
And this album overall is one of my favorite albums from her. I think I've got it probably at number 3 or so. We'll get to the others in a little while, but I love this album. And my favorite, of course, how can you beat the single, y'all? How can you beat that track? You can't beat it. I love it so much. I mean, but there's so many great tracks here. All the Man That I Need, I love that too. Anymore, I love that. Babyface doing his thing up and down the album. It's just such a fun, solid listen. The only thing that I don't listen to that much might be I'm Knocking, but everything else I pretty much rock with. Very solid album here.
Yeah, I agree. Word for word. Sure. Okay, you made that really easy. What about you, Dre? What do you think?
Yeah, I like this album. Like I said, this came out around the same time that I was actually, like I said, my recollection of music goes back to around 89, 90, when I was able to recall things. And, I'm Your Baby Tonight was all over radio. My mom knew the song word for word. My aunt knew the song word for word. Had a couple cousins. They knew the word. They knew the words word for word. Just a really good song. it's the whole New Jack Swing era. I love that era of R&B, so I'm probably partial. That's why I'm probably partial to this album. It's my favorite Whitney album, excluding her my favorite full length Whitney album, not the soundtracks. I'm not counting that. So, but it's my favorite Whitney album. To me, it's her most it's her real coming out party. This is mature Whitney. At this point, Whitney's what, 27, 28 years old. She's coming into her own as a woman. She's a grown woman now. She's dating Bobby Brown, so definitely she's back to black again. I mean, you're dating Bobby Brown. You're all the way back now.
You have no choice.
Yeah. So I've heard some people even accuse Whitney of doing that just as a PR stunt so she can get back in good gracious with the black community. I've heard that before.
That was yes. They were talking about this up in sixth grade, and they were saying that it was a fake relationship. I remember that very well.
Yeah, obviously it turned out not to be a fake relationship, but it was as real as it can get, actually. But yeah, I like most of this album. I even like this. I like the Stevie Wonder cut that they did together. I thought that was really good. The only
it was good.
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything I don't dislike about this album, to be honest with you. I can't really think of anything that I'm just like, oh man, I don't particularly like the song, so I couldn't really name anything. Just a really good album, top to bottom. Like you said, you got Babyface at his peak, L.A. Reid, you can't go wrong with that. Luther, comes in with Where Do You Love, another good song. And then obviously Stevie Wonder, my personal GOAT, of all time, comes in with a song, and I thought that was a really well done duet. And yeah, just top to bottom, man, this is my favorite Whitney album. It's the first album I remember hearing, first time I ever heard, Whitney. And to this day, I still enjoy this album. I've played it a few times back over the course of the years. Obviously not all the time. I played it back again, for this podcast. And I'm like, yeah, this album still holds up to me. So yeah, don't have anything bad to say about it.
Yeah, I feel the same way both of you do. There's so many bangers on this record. I mean, obviously, I'm Your Baby Tonight. I love a good shuffle groove, and it's interesting too because her style changed so completely.
Yeah,
and this is very much like Whitney's Off the Wall, really, if it's anything, because it's just so much fun. You can hear.
It's a good analogy.
But really, I mean, you can hear Whitney having fun all over the record. It's not manicured to death like the first couple of records, especially the second one. It doesn't feel like it's poured over. It just feels like Whitney going, I like that song, I like that song, I like that song, I like that song. But it doesn't sound like you used to sound, I don't care. Anyway, I like that song. I like, you know what I mean? Like it just sounds like her picking stuff that she enjoys, that's fun, and it feels very organic. And to the point that you made earlier, there were people that said that this was a calculated way back to the R&B audience, but they didn't talk long. That did not last, I promise you. Because people realize, just as you said yourself, I mean, just listening to the record, that's not true. It does feel very much her. It feels like she's basically just putting on a pair of shoes that finally fit. There's nothing, with the exception of like After We Make Love, which I can absolutely do without, which is a Michael Masser thing. I have no patience for Michael Masser producing Whitney Houston. I never really have, and he got it right very rarely, in my honest opinion, from an artistic standpoint. But there's just like banger after banger on this record. Like, I don't, like, in terms of picking a favorite, like, man, Miracle is so good.
Yes.
I love that ballad. And it's like, it's a slow song, but it's stylish. And it feels completely right coming from her. She believes every word of it. She's totally into it. I mean, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous tune. My Name Is Not Susan is a lot of fun. People think that Elliot Babyface wrote that song, and they didn't. It was actually written by a white guy. Eric Foster White wrote it. The same guy that wrote Never Should Have Let You Go for High Five a couple of years later.
Really? He wrote that song?
Yeah. That wasn't, people think that was Joe. It wasn't. That was Eric Foster White.
Did you know that?
No, this was news to me.
Wow. Okay.
White dude wrote it. It's hilarious. And then just the stuff that he's written kind of under the radar that nobody realized he wrote.
I need to look him up.
But My Name Is Not Susan is it's hilarious. It's just such a great song, and Whitney is there for all of it, and she gets that whole thing across so well. And my name is not Susan, so watch what you say. Like, this is don't play with Whitney. It's a mistake. And this is where we first kind of got a glimpse of the sharper edges of Whitney's personality.
Oh yes.
We would see more of it later.
Too much of it later.
Yeah, in some cases we would overdose on it later. Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. But okay, so I have to say this now. So this was met with a little bit of confusion when I mentioned that You Give Good Love is my second favorite Whitney Houston song.
Mm-hmm.
My very first favorite Whitney Houston song was recorded for this album and left off of it because of how long it was, because it is long. It's over 6 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And then because All the Man That I Need is on the record, and the songs are similar enough that this one got canceled out. But my very favorite Whitney Houston song of all time, bar none, is Dancing on the Smooth Edge, which was written by... Have you heard that song?
I have.
I have
totally forgot about that.
Fire. Absolutely fire. She is totally in it. David Lastly wrote the tune, and it's just, my gosh. Yeah, okay. It is somewhat like All the Man That I Need, but the chord changes are just so much more adventurous. That might be another reason why it was left off, because it is very much kind of a musician thing. The verses are gorgeous, the way she sings them when the choruses come in. I mean, narrator Michael Walton is nothing to play with, and you give him the right material, forget it. Just forget it. And he wasn't afraid to let the song be as long as it needed to be. He made no effort to cut. It all just flows so well. The end of it, where she's just like going on those ad-libs. My gosh. I already covered it on an episode of Slept On, so you can see me lose my ever-loving mind. I'm not going to do any more of it here, I promise you. But to me, like, just the modulations, just you just have to listen to that song. Trust me, if you heard it, you would understand me. But it's just brilliant, and without question, that is my favorite Whitney Houston song of all time.
Interesting.
Yes, I did not expect that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Go listen to it. It's so good. If you haven't heard it, go now. Why are you watching us? Go now. Just remember that when we're here, come back to us later. Go now. But what I'm noticing too that was interesting is that on the Japanese version of the album, there was a take of Higher Love on this, the Stevie Winwood tune. Have you heard that yet?
I don't remember.
Don't think so.
I don't remember that.
I have yet to hear it. It's terrible. None of us have heard it.
Yeah, I've got to hit up YouTube.
I've heard of. I've heard Taking a Chance, but I don't think it was. What is the other one you said it was again?
Higher Love.
Yeah,
you remember the Stevie Winwood thing that was a huge hit in '87? I
don't remember that.
I know the original Higher Love. I don't remember a Whitney version.
Yeah. I have not heard her do it.
I just remember Taking a Chance because I think that was the Winans produced that one. I remember that one.
It was BB and Keith Thomas. Yeah.
Okay.
That. And Keith did all the BB and CC stuff back then.
Yeah.
Brilliant producer. My gosh, and what a player. But yeah, he's just Keith Thomas is great. And he's a white guy too, and nobody knows it, and I love it. I think it's hilarious. They all thought he was black, and he's not. He's a white guy. I love it when they fool us. I think it's so funny. I didn't know for years either. Like, who's the white guy? That's Keith Thomas. He's a white guy. But this record has. See, this is another one that just like the first one. It doesn't have any apologies to make, and even the stuff that's kind of like, meh. Yeah. I'm okay with it in an off the wall kind of way because she's trying stuff.
Yeah.
It isn't cut to a template like the first one was, and it doesn't go white like the second one does. It's just her having fun. This is what fun Whitney Houston sounds like when she's trying stuff.
You wanna know what's so crazy though? Like Entertainment Weekly and like the Baltimore Sun and all these other news outlets gave this negative. They didn't really like this album that much.
Really?
And I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
Because
Rolling Stone. Like Rolling Stone
gosh,
gave it like 2.5. Rolling Stone gave it like 2.5 stars or something like that.
I
You're
can see
right.
that because
Why
if you're coming in off of that previous album, which I bet if you look at the reviews are like stellar, and even the first album, it's such a departure. They're gonna be like, I don't like this. But she was not making the album for them. She was making it for a specific audience. That audience gonna dig it. That's what I think it is.
Is it me or does the music industry, they don't like R&B that much?
Thank you. No, they don't.
No, they don't.
That's the impression that I've always gotten. Like it's so crazy to me how like country, even hip hop is like far exceeded R&B, like in the mainstream, in the eyes of like I don't know, R&B for some reason is just not. It just doesn't attract. It just doesn't attract people. I don't know what it is, but it's very unfortunate, you know.
It's always been the case. Go back. I challenge people listening to this. Go back and look at some reviews from top critics on the 90s. Go and look at some like classic 90 albums.
Yeah.
I guarantee you they're getting 2 stars, 3 stars, mixed reviews, albums that we consider classics today. They don't have any ear for it.
I gotta give you this. So I went to allmusic.com, which is where I go to laugh. Because very often the reviews will show you that the reviewer didn't listen to the record. It happens all the time. That's a basic trap with all music, and those that are respected, you can kind of tell. It's a shame. But the only reviewer whose reviews I take seriously is Jason Elias. Follow him on Twitter. You should. He knows his stuff. But other than that, it's kind of ridiculous. But I'm looking at the review now for I'm Your Baby Tonight because I had to see this for myself. So they gave it 2 stars, which is just silly. And it says, while Houston's voice always provides some interesting listening, this is somewhat of a disappointing release with very few memorable songs. Really, Ashley? While she attempts to make a larger foray into dance music, it's not what this is, not at all. She fails to make the crossover impact of artists like Mariah Carey and Taylor Dane. She's not trying to.
There it is. That's the line. I told you she failed to cross over. That's what it is. Well, that's why it was rejected.
She did that with 2 records already. That was
right.
Not the intention of this record.
Correct. Just this album for what it is, not what you want it to be.
And to tell you the truth, if she would have released another album like Whitney, she wouldn't have survived because, like I said, Mariah was doing that pop R&B adult contemporary a lot better than Whitney was. So that wouldn't have worked for Whitney. She wouldn't have survived the New Jack, Babyface, Teddy Riley era. If she had released another Whitney, it just wouldn't have worked in 1990.
No, I say it all the time. An artist has to evolve with the times. And if she kept doing 1984 Whitney, no, we wouldn't be having this podcast. We'd be like, oh, she had 2 great albums and disappeared.
Right.
Or never mind the times, even just as an artist, just as an artist that moves forward, times notwithstanding, she needed to be able to do something else.
Right.
So, and this is just, I mean, Taylor Dane is wonderful for what she is. No offense, Miss Dane.
Right, but that ain't what this is.
This just proves not what this record is not that.
This just proves if you want an album review that don't suck, go to SoulInStereo.com. I'll hook you up. I know what I'm talking about.
In the description. I told you I'd do it and I did it. Just go down to the description.
I love the love. I love the love.
Of course, have to. Now, I was talking about that guy that's watching over there. He doesn't think I did it, but I did it. It's down in the description. Don't judge me. do it. Gosh. But no, I have to finish this disaster. So 2 high points she does reach on this album, only 2 of them. How nice of you, Ashley. Come in the form of ballads, the uplifting tale of another's love being enough to provide happiness and all the man that I need. That's not what the song's about. And the powerful verses surrounding a lost love through one's own devices and miracle. Okay, she gets that one.
She would pick the Michael Walden song. Go figure.
Of course.
Well, but she did pick up an LA Babyface too. So I'll let her have that. But
right.
Ashley, my darling, come on. That's just unnecessary. Of course, the user review is much more complimentary because he probably listened to the album.
Right.
Let's see what happens when you actually listen to the record. But yeah, so critics, what are you gonna do? Except for this one. The one in front of us is excellent.
Yeah, you got one good one. Yes. Except when they see my Drake reviews, then they have another opinion of me.
Well, yes, yeah. Follow Ed Bowser on Twitter. I'll put that down there too. You guys
Drake.
Really fun. So yes, so we're stopping here on this record, I guess. And does anybody have anything else to add before we put this one to bed? Or did we cover it fairly well?
I think we covered everything.
We covered it. It's dope.
Yeah.
I feel as if we did. So go listen to Dancing on the Smooth Edge. If you've waited to the end of this video cast, then you need to go listen to that song because my gosh. But yeah, we're gonna stop here with this one and go listen to that song. Go listen to great music because that's what that is. And yeah, click like and subscribe because there's more of these coming. We are only about halfway through this, and there is much more coming. But until you get it, this has been Ed from VinylAlbumCovers.com telling you to keep listening to great music.